You know, sometimes you think your life is solid, a steady job, good home, a wife you've built years with, kids who light up your world, and then one day you realize it was all a fragile illusion. That's what happened to me. I'm 39, a construction worker, a father of two, and until a few years ago, I thought I had it all figured out. My ex-wife, Meline, and I were together for 15 years. On paper, it looked like a picture-perfect marriage. 2 beautiful kids, bills paid on time, a decent house, the normal rhythm of family life. But if I'm being honest, underneath all that, things weren't right. They hadn't been for a long time. Meline had a temper that could light up a room in all the wrong ways. She wasn't the type to just sigh and walk away when she got annoyed. No, she'd explode. If I forgot something small like picking up milk after work, she'd slam cabinet doors so hard the dishes rattled. She'd start yelling about how she was raising the kids alone while I stood there, exhausted, covered in construction dust after a 12-hour shift, wondering how trying my best had somehow made me the bad guy. Then came Connor, my best friend since high school, the kind of guy everyone gravitates toward. Charismatic, funny, the life of every party. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one. Work hard, keep my head down, take care of my family. That was my role. When Connor went through his divorce, I tried to be there for him. He started coming around more, hanging out on weekends. I thought it was good for him. Maybe even good for us. Maybe Meline would relax a bit if she had someone else to laugh with. Stupid, I know, but that's how I justified it. Looking back, the red flags weren't just there. They were waving right in my face. Meline started dressing up just to sit outside when Connor dropped by for a barbecue. She'd wear new dresses, do her hair, put on makeup, all for a casual hangout. She'd laugh at every little thing he said, like he was the funniest man alive. And when we went out together, she always managed to sit next to him. I noticed, of course I did, but I told myself I was overthinking it. I didn't want to be the jealous husband who accuses his wife and his best friend of crossing lines. And besides, Connor was the guy I vented to about her mood swings. He'd listen, nod, and tell me, "Man, you put up with a lot." I thought he got it. Turns out he really did, just not the way I wanted. At home, things got worse. Meline started nitpicking everything I did. I'd come home late, bone-tired, and she'd be waiting, not with dinner or a smile, but with complaints. The laundry wasn't folded right, the kids' homework wasn't checked, I never helped enough. And still, I kept quiet. I'd apologize, take the blame, just to stop the yelling. The kids, Macy and Kevin, started to see through it too. Whenever Meline got angry, they'd quietly disappear into their rooms. That broke me. I wanted our home to feel safe, peaceful. Instead, it was like living in a minefield waiting for the next explosion. Connor's visits didn't help. He'd show up with little gifts, toys for the kids, flowers for Meline, but never anything for me. Not even a thanks for always having his back. It started to feel like he was becoming part of the family in all the ways I was being pushed out. Soon after, Meline began staying out late, saying she was working extra hours or helping friends. She'd come home around 9 or 10, head straight for the shower, barely say a word. And if I asked, even gently, she'd snap, defensive, short, irritated. It was like she'd built a wall between us and I was just someone she had to tolerate. Still, I kept holding on. Told myself maybe she was just going through something. Maybe we could fix it. Because when you've built a life with someone, a history, a home, kids, it's hard to accept it's all crumbling. You cling to whatever scraps of normal are left, even when you know the truth is staring you right in the face. Then came New Year's Eve, the night everything finally shattered. Normally it was our family night. The kids would stay up late. We'd make snacks, maybe watch the ball drop on TV if they could keep their eyes open. But that year, Meline suddenly announced she was going out. "With friends?" she said. "Not our friends, not anyone I knew. Just friends. No invite, no details, just a casual shrug like I was the babysitter for the night." I didn't argue. I just nodded and said, "All right, I'll be home with the kids." But my gut twisted the moment she said it. The way she acted, too casual, too rehearsed. It didn't sit right. Around 11 that night, the kids were asleep, and I was sitting on the couch flipping channels, trying not to think. Then my phone buzzed. A text from one of my coworkers, Tom. It just said, "Isn't this your wife?" and had a picture attached. My stomach dropped. It was a photo taken at a downtown bar. Meline sitting way too close to Connor, her hand resting on his arm, both of them smiling like teenagers who didn't have a care in the world. I didn't even think. I grabbed my jacket, locked the house, and drove. That drive felt endless. My hands were shaking on the wheel, heart pounding so loud I could barely breathe. Somewhere deep down, I already knew what I was going to find, but part of me still hoped it wasn't true. That maybe there was some other explanation, any explanation, but there wasn't. That night changed everything. It was the start of the collapse, the moment the truth ripped through the illusion I'd been living in. What followed after that, the lies, the manipulation, the revenge, the stalking, even her putting our kids in danger, that's a whole other story. But that night, that picture, that was where my old life ended, and a much darker chapter began. My mind wasn't spinning when I got that picture. It was quiet, too quiet. Like some part of me already knew what I was about to walk into. I drove straight to that bar, pulled in just after 11:30. The place was alive, music shaking the walls, people shouting, "Happy New Year!" Too early, balloons bouncing under flashing lights. And there in the corner booth I saw her, Meline, my wife of 15 years, sitting on Connor's lap, kissing him like it was something they'd done 1,000 times before. I didn't make a scene, didn't shout, didn't flip tables or demand an explanation. I just stood there watching the truth unfold in front of me. When she finally saw me, her face drained of color. Connor froze, trying to slide her off his lap like maybe that would undo what I'd just seen. I walked up, calm, almost detached, looked straight at her and said, "We're done." Then turned to Connor. "You two are out of my life." She opened her mouth to speak, probably to spin some excuse, but I cut her off before a word came out. "Save it, I'm not stupid and I'm not weak. You made your choice. Now live with it." And then I walked out. No drama, no second guessing. Just done. On the drive home, I didn't feel rage or heartbreak. It was like a switch had flipped off inside me. 15 years of yelling, guilt, manipulation, gone. Replaced by something colder, final. The next morning, I told her flat out she needed to move out. No negotiations, no counseling talk, no dragging out the pain. You wanted him? Go live with him. But the house, the kids, the life we built, you don't get to burn all that down too. She tried the usual guilt trip, saying I was tearing the family apart, that the kids needed both parents under one roof. I actually laughed. You tore it apart the second you climbed into his lap, Meline. Don't turn this around on me. Within 2 weeks, she was gone. Every text, every move, documented. I had a folder for my lawyer, every detail neatly recorded. The divorce moved faster than I expected, probably because she didn't fight much. Maybe she really thought Connor was worth it. The hardest part, though, was the kids. Macy was old enough to sense what happened. Kevin just kept asking when Mommy was coming home. I didn't lie to them. I told them the truth as gently as I could. That Mommy made a choice and she wasn't living here anymore. But I wasn't going anywhere, they cried, and so did I when they couldn't see me. But after that, they clung tighter. We rebuilt our little world one day at a time. Life became a routine. Work, school runs, dinner, bedtime, repeat. Survival mode. But I stayed strong. I refused to let Meline see me broken. I think she expected me to beg, to chase her, to crumble. Instead, she got silence, and that silence burned her more than any words could. Connor disappeared completely. The man I'd called my brother was gone, replaced by a stranger who now lived with my ex-wife. Mutual friends said he was bragging, claiming Meline had finally found happiness. Yeah, sure, man. Enjoy raising another man's kids every other weekend. For a while, I thought that was it, the end of the story. Divorce finalized, custody settled, a new start ahead. But Meline couldn't stand the idea that I'd moved on, that I wasn't destroyed by her. She hated that she'd lost control. It started small. Random texts at midnight. The kids miss me. Then unannounced visits. She'd show up claiming she forgot Kevin's jacket or needed to drop something off. But really, she just wanted to talk, to see if she still had a hold on me. Every time I told her the same thing. Stay in your lane, Meline. We're done. But she didn't listen. People like her never do. Control was her oxygen. Take it away and she'd find new ways to get under your skin. I wasn't falling for it this time. I documented everything, reported every incident, built a paper trail, I had one goal now: protect my kids, protect my peace. Then, out of nowhere, something good happened. My coworker Tom dragged me out one weekend, said I needed to stop hiding at home. I went, mostly just to shut him up. And that's when I met Nancy. Nancy wasn't flashy, wasn't trying to fill any void. She was calm, grounded, real. She listened, really listened, and she didn't treat me like some broken project or a paycheck with legs. She had her own life, her own home, her own confidence. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. The kids loved her almost immediately. Macy and Nancy bonded over books. Kevin laughed at her goofy jokes and loved that she played board games with him like she actually enjoyed it. She never tried to be mom. She just cared. And that meant everything. Of course, Meline found out. And when she did, she lost her mind. One night, out of nowhere, she showed up pounding on my front door like she still lived there. No call, no warning, just rage. I opened the door, and she stormed past me straight into the kitchen, eyes scanning like a detective. "Where is she?" she demanded. I told her flatly, "Get out, Meline. You don't live here anymore. You don't have that right." She ignored me, spotted Nancy's coffee mug in the sink, grabbed it and threw it in the trash like she was marking her territory. "Don't bring random women around my kids," she snapped. I didn't yell. I didn't even flinch. I just said, first off, Nancy isn't random. Second, you lost the right to tell me what to do the moment you climbed into Connor's lap. Leave. She smirked, that same manipulative smirk she'd always used when she thought she still had power. "You're confusing the kids," she said. "They don't need another mother." That's when I pulled out my phone, held it up and said, "You've got two options. Leave, or I call the police right now." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. And this time, I didn't let it slide. I called the non-emergency line and filed a harassment report. It wasn't about revenge. It was about finally standing up and protecting what mattered: me, my kids, and the peace we'd fought so hard to build. That was the night the paper trail began. And Meline? She wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. A week later, Nancy stayed over on one of the nights I had the kids. The next morning, chaos arrived in the form of flashing blue lights. Meline had called the cops, said I was exposing her children to a dangerous stranger. 2 squad cars pulled up, officers calm and professional, asking Nancy a few questions, checking her ID. Then they gave me that look, the one that says, "Seriously? This is what we were called for?" One of them even muttered, "Sir, unless there's real evidence of danger, your ex can't control who you date." I filed another report. But the more Meline realized she couldn't control me, the more she tried to control the kids. Macy told me her mom kept grilling her about Nancy, what she cooked, what games they played, if she'd said anything bad about Mommy. Macy hated it. Kevin started stuttering when he talked about weekends with me, scared he might say the wrong thing. I confronted Meline during a custody exchange. I told her, "Stop using the kids as spies. It's not healthy." She folded her arms, that fake sweet smile plastered on her face. "I'm just making sure they're safe," she said. I shot back, "Safe? You're dating a guy who treats loyalty like an option, but you're worried about Nancy? Get real." That hit a nerve. Her face went cold. "You're going to regret bringing her into this," she hissed before peeling off like a teenager in a tantrum. But I didn't regret it. Not one bit. I was done letting her run my life. I kept documenting, filing reports, making sure there was a record every single time she stepped out of line. Nancy saw the toll it was taking and told me one night, "You don't have to put up with this for me." I looked her in the eyes and said, "Exactly. That's why I'm not. She doesn't own me anymore." Then Meline started getting darker. I'd see her car parked a block away from Nancy's house late at night, engine running, lights off. Neighbors mentioned it too. Soon, fake social media accounts started following Nancy, liking her old photos like some creepy stalker checklist. Nancy stayed calm, but I could tell it got under her skin. When you catch your girlfriend double-checking the locks every night, you know it's not nothing. I told her, "We'll handle this. She's not above the law, and I'm not letting her think she is." Because Meline wasn't just angry, she was obsessed. In her mind, she still owned me. The kids, my time, my happiness. She couldn't stand that I'd moved on and was finally okay. And every time she pushed, I pushed back harder. But she didn't stop. If anything, she cranked the crazy up to 11. The kids were feeling it too. Macy quieter than usual, Kevin jumpier, like he was waiting for something bad to happen. That's when I decided enough. We needed space to breathe. So I planned a camping trip. Just me, Nancy, and the kids. No screens, no stress, just the woods and some peace. We packed up Friday afternoon and hit the road. By sunset, the tent was up, the campfire was glowing, and for the first time in months, everything felt normal. Marshmallows, ghost stories, Kevin laughing so hard he spilled cocoa all over himself. It was perfect. The next morning, we hiked a short trail. Macy picked wildflowers, Kevin chased squirrels, Nancy snapped photos like she was freezing the good moments before they slipped away. When we got back, it was nearly lunchtime, and that's when I saw her. Meline, sitting at our picnic table. Hands folded, eyes locked on me like she'd been waiting all morning. My stomach dropped, but I kept my face steady. I told the kids to stay by Nancy and walked over. "What the hell are you doing here?" I asked. She stood up, every word rehearsed. "You kidnapped my children. You think you can just take them without telling me?" Her voice was loud enough to turn heads. I kept mine calm but firm. "It's my weekend, Meline. You have no right to be here. Leave." Macy clutched Nancy's hand. Kevin hid behind me. Meline saw that and snapped. "See, they're scared of you. You're confusing them with your side chick." She jabbed a finger at Nancy, who stayed composed and whispered to the kids, "It's okay, stay close." Then she started walking them toward the car. Big mistake because Meline lost it. "Don't you touch my children," she screamed, lunging forward. I stepped in front of her, my voice low and sharp. "Back up, now!" Other campers were watching, phones out. Meline switched on the tears instantly, sobbing about how I stole her babies, how Nancy was trying to replace her. Then the camp host showed up, older guy, radio on his belt. Meline flipped from hysterical to fragile in a heartbeat. "I'm just a mother," she said, all trembling voice and wide eyes. He took them without telling me. "Please, I just want my kids back." I pulled out the custody papers, because I knew something like this could happen. "It's my weekend. She has no right to be here." The host read them, nodded, and told her she needed to leave. She sneered. "I'm not leaving without them." That's when I stopped being nice. I turned to the host. "Call the cops. She's trespassing and she just tried to grab my son." The second I said cops, her mask cracked. She screamed, "You'll regret this! You're poisoning them against me!" Macy started crying. Kevin clung to Nancy's jacket. My chest was burning, but I held the line. The host told her flatly, "Either leave now or deal with the sheriff when he gets here." Finally, she snapped, stormed off to her car, muttering curses. Tires screeched, gravel flew, and she was gone. Just like that. But as the dust settled, I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. We tried to keep the trip going, tried to pretend the day hadn't just shattered everything, but the kids were shaken. Macy kept asking, "Why was Mommy so mean?" Over and over, like she was trying to understand something that made no sense. Kevin wouldn't let go of Nancy's hand. And that night, when the campfire burned down to embers, he whispered, "Is Mommy going to come back in the dark?" That broke me. Completely. We packed up early the next morning and headed home in silence. When we pulled into my driveway, my stomach sank. The front door and windows were splattered with dried egg. The neighbors said they'd seen Meline's car circling the block not long after she'd stormed out of the campground. She must have gone straight from that meltdown to my house, furious, humiliated, and looking for somewhere to dump her rage. That Monday, I called my lawyer again. He didn't sugarcoat it this time. "You've got enough. File for a restraining order, now." So I did. And for a brief moment, I thought that piece of paper might finally draw the line she couldn't cross. Maybe she'd see the consequences and back off. But I was wrong. Meline wasn't done. She was just changing her game. The restraining order came through fast. The judge didn't even hesitate once he saw the stack of reports, photos, and everything else she'd pulled. She was ordered to stay 100 yards away from me, Nancy, and both our homes. No calls, no messages. No accidental run-ins. For a second, I breathed easier. Maybe, just maybe, this was the end of it. Yeah, no. Meline just found a new way to strike. It was a Friday. Normal custody exchange. Even with the restraining order, there was an exception for quick, peaceful handoffs. So we met, like always, in a grocery store parking lot halfway between our homes. She showed up smiling. like she hadn't been trying to wreck my life for months. That fake everything's fine face she puts on when people are watching. She knelt down, hugged Macy, fussed with Kevin's jacket, then insisted on checking his backpack for school stuff. I didn't think much of it. She'd done it before, always nitpicking about snacks or homework. But this time, she wasn't checking. She was planting. Sunday came and went. Monday morning, Kevin grabbed that same backpack for school. And by the time I got the call, it was too late. The tone in the school secretary's voice told me everything before she even said it. They'd found something in Kevin's bag, a box cutter. My blood went cold. I left work, drove straight to the school. Kevin was sitting in the principal's office, eyes red and puffy, clutching Macy's hand like he was trying not to drown. "I didn't put it there," he kept whispering. "I didn't put it there." Hearing that broke me all over again. The principal explained they had to follow protocol, document the weapon, maybe even involve authorities. I told him flat out, "That's not my son. Someone planted it." Then Macy looked up, her voice barely a whisper. Mom checked his backpack on Friday. And everything clicked. I asked to see the bag. The principal handed it over, and there it was, a note tucked beside the box cutter. I didn't even need to read the whole thing to know whose handwriting it was. Meline's, sloppy loops, weird capital letters, the same twisted R's I'd seen 1,000 times on old grocery lists and sticky notes. The message was simple. Keep this away from her. No signature. But I didn't need one. I called my lawyer, then the police. Filed another report. Handed over the note, the box cutter, the entire story. They logged it all, another piece of evidence in a growing mountain of madness. And Meline didn't even try to hide her next move. That same night, Nancy got a phone call at work. The voice wouldn't give a name, just hinted that she was unsafe around children. Said something about leaving sharp objects where kids could reach them. Nancy hung up, but she knew. We both did. The next day, Child Protective Services showed up at our door. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint. Said Nancy was careless, that she was endangering the kids. The investigator was professional, kind even. She looked around, spoke with the kids, and then Kevin, bless his heart, told her the truth. "Mommy put the knife in my bag." Macy nodded beside him. The investigator's face softened. She knew exactly what was happening. Before leaving, she said quietly, "This looks like a custody retaliation case," and closed it as unfounded. She even handed me the case number before walking out. That night, the house was quiet but heavy. Macy sat on the couch staring at nothing. When I asked what was wrong, she finally whispered, "If Mom keeps doing stuff like this, will we have to choose sides?" That one hit harder than anything Meline had ever done. I told them both, "You'll never have to pick sides. Your kids. None of this is your fault. What your mom's doing, that's her choice, not yours." Nancy held strong through it all. She told me, "If Meline thinks she can scare me away, she's wrong." But I could see the cracks forming. The way she double-checked locks, left early for work, scanned the street before parking. Meline's lies weren't breaking us, they were forging us into something stronger. We weren't hiding anymore. My lawyer filed for an emergency custody modification that week. "This isn't harassment anymore," he said. "It's reckless endangerment." Planting a weapon in a kid's backpack? A judge won't ignore that. And Meline predictably tried to spin it. Told everyone Nancy planted it. Whispered to Macy that she should be careful around her. Even called my mother, trying to rope her in. But my mom didn't hesitate. She shut her down cold. "The only dangerous one here is you." And for once, I felt like I wasn't fighting this alone anymore. 2 days after the box cutter incident, the police called. The officer's voice was calm but heavy, like he'd said this kind of thing too many times before. They couldn't prove yet who put it in Kevin's backpack, but they'd added it to the growing record, along with the CPS stunt and the anonymous complaint. "This is a pattern," he said. "Keep documenting. It'll come back on her." I already knew that. This wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't heartbreak. Meline had crossed into something darker. Obsession. She wasn't trying to win me back. She was trying to burn my life down. She wanted to ruin me, destroy Nancy, keep control even after losing everything. And that's when it finally hit me. This wasn't going to fade on its own. Meline wasn't the kind of person who moved on. She was the kind who spiraled. And if someone didn't stop her, she'd drag us all down with her. But I didn't have to wait long for her perfect little fantasy to start cracking. It started with a phone call from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Viola, Connor's ex-wife. Her voice trembled like she'd spent days deciding whether or not to make that call. "We need to meet," she said. "It's about Meline, and it's about the kids." That got my full attention. We met that night at a quiet diner on the far side of town, the kind of place where no one asks questions. When I walked in, Viola looked wrecked, dark circles under her eyes, fingers trembling around her coffee cup. She didn't bother with small talk. "Connor's been calling me," she said. He's scared of her. That word, scared, stuck in my throat. Then Viola told me everything. How Meline had filled notebooks, pages and pages, tracking Nancy's daily routine. When she left for work, where she shopped, who she met. Connor told her Meline would sit for hours outside Nancy's office, or my house, engine off, lights off, just watching. He'd tried to ignore it until she threatened to accuse him of something unspeakable. Said she'd claim he'd done something inappropriate with my kids if he ever left her. That's when he cracked. He went to the cops. But it went further. Viola's voice broke when she told me she talks about making Nancy disappear. I don't know if she means scaring her off or something worse. But it's not just talk anymore. I sat there staring into my coffee, trying to stop my hands from shaking. "She threatened Connor too," Viola whispered. Said if he ever left her, she'd blame him for everything. That was it for me. I had to tell you. I thanked her and left that diner with one thought echoing in my head. This ends now. The next morning, I was on the phone with my lawyer and the police. I laid everything out. The stalking, the fake calls, the CPS stunt, and now the threats. My lawyer didn't hesitate. "We're past harassment. This is criminal. File a report immediately." When I met with the detective, I could see the shift in his face as I spoke. When I mentioned the journals and the threat about Nancy, his entire tone changed. He asked for statements, proof, and I told him about Viola and Connor. Later that week, they brought Connor in, and this time he didn't protect her. He spilled everything: the late-night drives around Nancy's block, the manic scribbling in her notebooks, the way she'd mutter that Nancy doesn't belong here. Then he handed over a recording. The detective played it for me in his office, and I'll never forget that sound. Meline's voice, cold, controlled. If Nancy just wrapped her car around a tree, she said, all our problems would be solved. Then she laughed, like it was a punchline. The detective didn't laugh. Neither did I. That was enough. They got a warrant, searched her house, and found the notebooks. Dozens of them. Maps of Nancy's office. Her commute, photos taken from a distance, through windows. In her car, they found something worse: a metal baseball bat and printouts of Nancy's schedule. That was it. The police arrested her on stalking and harassment charges. When they cuffed her, she screamed, right there in her driveway, "He ruined my life. She stole my family. You're all jealous," thrashing, kicking at the officers like a wild animal. The kids were at school, thank God. But in a small town like ours, news travels fast. By the time I picked them up, Macy already knew. She looked up at me with wide, tear-filled eyes. "Is Mommy going to jail?" Kevin just asked, "Is it my fault?" I told them the truth, gently. "Mommy made choices that hurt people. None of this is your fault." Nancy was shaken, of course. Who wouldn't be? But she didn't run. She looked at me and said, "If Meline thinks this will scare me away, she's wrong." And I believed her. Meline made bail a few days later, but the judge didn't take chances. The restraining order got tighter, 500 yards this time. No calls, no messages, no fake accounts, no surveillance. In court, she unraveled even more. Fired 2 lawyers because they wouldn't sell her "I'm the victim" story. Started representing herself, ranting to judges about conspiracies and how I'd brainwashed everyone against her. The custody evaluator recommended supervised visits only, with mandatory counseling and a psych evaluation before she could even see the kids again. She refused, said the system was biased against mothers. So the court suspended her visits completely. And then something incredible happened. The house got quiet, peaceful. Macy's stomach aches stopped. Kevin slept through the night without waking up crying. It felt like the air in our home finally cleared. They still asked about their mom sometimes. but not the way they used to. Not with hope. More like remembering someone they used to know. And me? I didn't feel triumphant. I wasn't celebrating. I just felt relief. Like we'd been living under a storm cloud for years. And for the first time, the sun was starting to break through. Even after the verdict, I knew this wasn't over. Trials take time, and Meline was never the kind of woman to quietly admit defeat. I stayed on edge, security cameras running at both houses, logs updated daily, every detail documented like clockwork. I wasn't being paranoid anymore. I was being prepared. Nancy's job let her work from home for a while, a blessing. She didn't have to glance over her shoulder every time she walked to her car. The nights were still uneasy, though. Sometimes I'd check the cameras before bed, then peek in on the kids. Watching them sleep, peaceful for once, I'd think. I didn't start this war. But I'll fight every step of it until they're safe. Meline wanted control. She always did. Control over me, over the kids, over a life she threw away but still wanted to own. But that version of me, the man who once let her yell, manipulate, and walk over him, that man was gone. Dead and buried. And that I knew would be her downfall. The trial began 6 months after her arrest. I'd been in court before. The divorce, the restraining orders. But this was something else entirely. You could feel the tension in the air, the weight of it. Prosecutors brought in boxes of evidence. My lawyer leaned over before it started and said quietly, "This isn't a he said, she said anymore." She left a paper trail a mile long. And she had. They laid everything bare in front of the jury. The anonymous calls to Nancy's workplace, the stalking logs, the CPS stunt, the planted box cutter in Kevin's backpack, the photos she'd taken from her car, and finally, the kicker, the recording Connor made. I'll never forget sitting there, jaw locked, as Meline's voice echoed through the courtroom speakers, cold, controlled. If Nancy just wrapped her car around a tree, all our problems would be solved. Then that laugh, the same empty laugh that used to echo through our house when she was angry. The jury didn't need to see my face. They just needed to hear hers. Connor took the stand next. I didn't pity him, but for once he told the truth. He admitted she'd threatened to blame him for stalking if he left her, that she'd even said she'd accuse him of touching my kids if he ever tried to walk away. Watching him sweat under the lights, I realized his life was wrecked too, just in a different way. Then Viola came forward. She looked tired but steady. She told the court about Meline's late-night rants, about the way she filled notebooks with Nancy's routine, her schedule, her car, her workplace. Viola said she'd been terrified Meline would actually hurt someone. Her testimony hit like a hammer. Then came the evidence that turned every stomach in the room. The metal baseball bat they'd found in Meline's car, right next to a printed map of Nancy's office, with hand-drawn circles around parking lots and entrances, all in her handwriting. It wasn't speculation anymore. It was intent. Meline's defense was a disaster from the start. She fired 2 public defenders before deciding she didn't need one. She'd represent herself. Every time she opened her mouth, she made it worse, shouting about conspiracies, claiming I'd bribed Connor and Viola, swearing Nancy had seduced me into framing her. The judge had to warn her again and again to keep it professional. She never did. The kids didn't testify, thank God, but their school counselor did. She spoke softly, but every word cut deep. She described Kevin's nightmares, Macy's anxiety, how their distress always spiked after every one of Meline's stunts. The jury sat silent, listening to the emotional wreckage Meline had left behind. 2 weeks later, the verdict came back. Guilty. Multiple counts: stalking, harassment, child endangerment. The sentencing was swift. 18 months in jail, 3 years probation, mandatory psychiatric evaluation and anger management before she could even think about custody again. On top of that, the judge extended the no-contact order through her probation. Even after she's out, she can't come near us. When the judge read the sentence aloud, something in Meline snapped. She stood up, pointing at me across the courtroom, screaming, "You ruined my life! This is all Nancy's fault. I'll never forgive you." Bailiffs had to drag her out as she kicked and fought, her voice echoing down the hall until the doors slammed shut. That was the last time I ever saw her in person. For the kids, the fallout hit differently. Macy, old enough to understand, looked at me one night and asked, "Will Mom ever get better?" I took a deep breath and told her, "That's on her, sweetheart. It's not on us." Kevin, still young enough to hope, just asked if Mommy would be back before his next birthday. That one broke me a little, but I stayed honest. She needs help first. Until then, you're safe here. And slowly, things started to feel normal again. No more stomach aches. No more wet beds. The laughter came back into the house, light and real this time. Macy talked about school projects again without the shadow of fear in her voice. Kevin slept through the night, his nightmares finally fading. And Nancy, God, she was solid. Through every hearing, every ugly rumor, every court date, she never wavered. She helped file reports, sat with the kids when they cried, faced down Meline's lies without flinching. Moving in together wasn't even a question. It just felt right, like we'd all earned this peace the hard way. As for Meline, she's sitting in a cell somewhere. 18 months doesn't sound like much, but the number isn't what matters. What matters is that she lost. She wanted to control me. She wanted to break me. She wanted to scare Nancy off. Instead, she ended up with nothing. No partner, no kids, no freedom. Just the consequences she built herself. I keep everything. The police reports, the court papers, the custody documents, in a single binder. Every update, every new file goes right in there. Some people say that's paranoid. I say it's protection. Because when Meline gets out, I don't expect a miracle. I expect patterns. And if she slips up again, I'll have every bit of proof ready to go. Relatives sometimes try to guilt me, say things like, "The kids need their mom." But I shut that down fast. Forgiveness doesn't mean giving her the chance to destroy us again. If she ever truly gets help, real, lasting help, maybe one day supervised visits could happen. But until then, she stays where she belongs. On the outside, she thought she'd control me forever. But in the end, she only proved one thing. When you try to destroy everything you once loved, you don't win. You just end up alone, watching from the other side of the glass, at the family you could have had, living free without you.